All right, starts Holy Week, Palm Sunday or Passion Sunday, and we move on towards Easter next week, Sunday. So let me start with a question. Which is the most important day of Holy Week? Is it Good Friday, when Jesus died for our sins? Or is it Easter Sunday, the day he rose again in victory? If you had to pick a day, it's probably one of these two, right? Good Friday, Easter Sunday, death or life. But there's a day in between those two, right? Isn't that weird? I mean, the day God rested up there. There's a day in between. A day when nothing happens. No crowds, no miracles, no words, no movement, just Jesus' body lying in a tomb. This is how John tells it. John 19, verse 40 says, taking Jesus' body, two of them wrapped it up with spices in strips of linen. This was in accordance with Jewish burial customs. And then verse 42 says, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since a tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. They laid his body there. The voice of Jesus silent, the body of Jesus still. The voice that used to talk with authority, the feet that would walk from town to town, and his hands, the hands that touched lepers and made them clean, the hands that took bread and broke it and fed thousands, the hands that formed mud and gave sight to the blind, the hands that washed his disciples' feet. These are not idle hands. They were working hands. The hands of a carpenter. Or that word carpenter, turns out, could also mean bricklayer, just so you know. It doesn't have to be a carpenter. It could mean it's a working man's hand. It's a working man's designation. So Jesus was working man, calloused hands, creating hands, building something, hands. And then those same hands stretched out on a cross, pierced, open. Not taking, but giving, open. And now his hands are there, lying still in a borrowed tomb on Saturday. The hands that made everything no longer doing anything. Now, listen. This is not the first time that the Creator has stopped working. Genesis 2 says this, by the seventh day, God had finished the work that he had been doing. And so on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because on it, he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. He didn't rest because he was tired. He rested because his work was finished. Now I have a note in my sermon notes here that says this. Should I say Miller time right now? That's what the note says. So those of you who watched football back in the day, right? It was the hard-working man, and they get done with the day. And now what time is it? It's Miller time, right? It's time to be done because we're done. The work is finished. It's over. And so in the book of John, it's the same, right? After Jesus says, it is finished, that same creator, those same hands, he lies down again. He lays down and rests again. In the beginning, God rests in a garden after the work of creation. Now, on Holy Saturday, God rests in a tomb, in a garden, after the work of salvation. See those two things, how they connect together? God blesses the seventh day and makes it holy. We call it Holy Saturday if you're of a little bit higher church than we are. It's Holy Saturday. It's a holy day because God is at rest. This is not just death. Good Friday is not just death. and then nothing. It is death and then Sabbath rest. Holy rest. Completed work, now rest. We've seen his hands at work, and now we see Jesus' hands at rest. But to understand what that means, we need to go back to the beginning, right? So we need to start with the original work. When God originally creates the world, Genesis 2:15 says, the Lord took the man, Adam, puts him in a garden of Eden to do what? Just to pick grapes and sit back and eat grapes and do nothing? No, it says he put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it. Adam did not just lounge around all day. He had a garden to take care of. And those of you who have planted gardens, can't plant gardens yet, right, here, but those of you who plant gardens or take care of plants, that's something that you have to do daily. You work and you take care of what you have been given. Because if you don't work and take care of it, you don't get cucumbers at the end of the year, right? You work. You take care of the garden. So from the very beginning, human hands are made for work, to do good work, to get down in the soil, to do meaningful work, to do fruitful work, work that participates in what God is doing. That's why I wanted to mention Miller Time so bad. Because it's not time to drink beer. It's we did some work. We got something done. We accomplished something. Today was a good day. We got a lot of work done. And that's a good thing. And after you do your work, meaningful work, you rest. Hands plant in the soil, cultivating life, or building something, or fixing fences, tending to what God has made. Work is not a curse, right? Work is not something that God imposes on you. Work is a calling in your life. Guys are designed to work. We get up, you go to work. I had a guy retire from his job, or retire from farming, right? Back in my Chancellor church. I asked him, what are you going to do now? And he's like, yeah, I'm not sure. But then he says something like this. He says, but I'm probably going to keep some cattle around just so that I can get up in the morning and have something to do. And I'm like, okay, that starts to make sense for me, right? Like, you just have to have something in you that says, I got to get up and do something with my hands. It's a calling that God places on us. But we know something breaks then. Something breaks at that point. Genesis 3 says, it's not just a calling anymore. Now, through painful toil, after sin enters the world, now, through painful toil, you will eat food from the ground. Now, by the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food. Now, the same hands are still working, but it feels different. It's heavy. It's frustrating. It's endless. There are thorns. There's resistance. There's sweat. There's bad bosses, right? There's annoying coworkers that you got to deal with. It feels different. And it doesn't stop. It's a Monday every 7 days, just like there's a weekend every 7 days. There's another Monday every 7 days. No longer does work give life, it takes life away. And ever since then, that's been the pattern of human life. We don't just work, we toil. We don't just, it's not just in fields, not just in our gardens, but it's in everything. We toil and we strive and we run after and chase after and work for what? For approval. Or we toil for an identity, or we toil for peace. Or we're always trying to produce and make something that never quite satisfies. Always working, never finished. But look at Jesus again. So that's where we are now. That's where we have been through all of history. working but never accomplishing completely, working but it's never quite what we want, always tinkering with the house, always working on the car, always like, I can make this a little bit better. I like to say it at our house, the laundry is never done. Unless you somehow, lay on the floor, the laundry is never done because you just got something else to do. The dishes are done, for that long, but the laundry is never done, never finished. But you look at Jesus right now on Holy Saturday, look at his hands. These hands enter our world of toil. They touch the sick. They carry burdens. They bring children to himself. They break under the weight of the cross. And on the cross, Jesus takes all of that toil, all of that striving, all of that work, the curse, the thorns, the sweat. He works under the full weight of what we have been carrying. And then he says, it is finished. The work that we could never finish, Jesus finishes. And so that's why his hands are laid in the tomb. They're not resting from effort. They're not resting because he's tired. They're resting because his work is done. It's complete. So he can rest because he's given everything. He's completed everything. And so he is at rest. His hands can lay in the tomb, no longer needing to work. Because here's the truth. Most people are not openly rejecting Jesus. They're not shaking their fist at God. They're just still working. Still working. They're still trying to prove themselves, still trying to fix themselves, still trying to earn what cannot be earned, still trying to clean myself up. I don't belong with those church people because I need to clean myself up. Then I can belong. Then I can do something for God. A little more trust, a little more effort, a little more grace, a little more self-salvation. Then I'll be where I need to be. And then God can use me. Oftentimes we live one hand open to God, saying, yes, give me what I need, but one hand still clenched down here, trying to work, trying to keep the crank going, and then asking God to give me things. That's a lie. If I try just a little bit harder, if I try just a little bit more, what you're saying to yourself is, then I can finish what Jesus started. And you forget, Jesus already finished it. Gospel doesn't say, you have to finish what Jesus started. The gospel doesn't say, he started something and then you complete it. It says, he finished something for you to receive. And maybe this is why, because you're over here cranking and you're only receiving half of what Jesus has for you. Maybe he wants you to receive more, but to do that, you got to let go of something that you're trying to make happen on your own. You got to get up and work. You have to work because God has given you something to do. But maybe you haven't received what he has given you to do because you're over here trying to do your own thing instead of saying, okay, what do you have for me, Lord? I'll take that and we'll do that. There's this weird thing where if you read Bible commentaries or you read stuff online, or you see articles. Time magazine always has articles this time of year about the resurrection, what really happened and all that. And what they'll say is, when Jesus was crucified, They didn't drive the nails in his hand here. They drove the nails here. Because if you put the nails here, that would rip the weight, and then that's not possible. So they had to have nailed that here. And we do this weird thing where we okay, we got to figure out all the exact historical accuracies and historical details. And me personally, I love that kind of stuff. Let's get down in there and figure it all out. But John is showing you Jesus' hands. When Jesus comes back, resurrects from the dead, physically in the body, he goes to Thomas and he says, "See here my hands, look at my hands." So John's showing you the hands, not to answer your curiosity about how exactly it happened, but to confront your posture, right? What John is saying is that, really, if the nail is right here, is that still the hand? Or is it right here? Is it still? Where exactly is the hand in the verse of the? See, it doesn't matter. What matters is what John is trying to show you, right? The Bible is accurate. It's exactly right. But what John is trying to show you is not exactly what happened in which millimeter. John is trying to say, hey, where is your posture? Where are your hands? These are written, things John writes, these are written that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ and the Son of God, and by believing you would have life in his name. So John is saying, hey, look at Jesus' hands to confront your posture, your hands. Are your hands open? Or are your hands grasping onto stuff? So let's just practice this. Not just think about it, let's practice. So this week, before you solve a problem, before you make a plan, before you fix something, stop and pray first. Or stop and open the scriptures first. Or maybe this week, because it's Holy, and just tell yourself, because it's Holy Week and Easter is coming, this week, the first thing I'm going to do in the morning is not grab my phone, and don't tell yourself I'm going to grab my Bible app on my phone. Just tell yourself, I'm going to grab my Bible, I'm going to read something out of the Bible first thing. Pray first, open the scriptures first, receive something with open hands before you act. Say, Lord, I'm dependent on you before my effort starts to run the show. And maybe train your heart that way. Maybe stop reaching and start receiving. All right, let's practice this together, okay? Pastor's going to do something crazy. Okay, so right now, I want you to just sit still. We're not going to do any meditation or anything like that because that's weird. But just sit still, put your hands on your lap, and just make sure that they are open. Just rest them there. Not grasping, not holding, nothing to prove. Just hands open. That's what faith feels like. Just open. Do you ever lay down, about to go to sleep, and you're laying there, and you're having a hard time going to sleep? I do this every once in a while. I lay down, all of a sudden I realize that I'm laying there like this. I'm like, okay, obviously I'm not relaxed somehow. So you just open up your hands, and you begin to just release whatever it is. Something is released by just having open hands. I was listening to this guy, and the podcasters that I listen to in general, sometimes I end up listening to Tucker, so he's not part of this group. But the podcasters I listen to in general, they love the old, like medieval and early church fathers stuff. That's what they like, and so I just resonate with the way they talk about it. And then one of the guys this week, his name is Richard Rowland. And he said that in the Middle Ages, right, People valued things that were written down because they were written down. And so every scrap of anything, they just loved it. And it had to be important because it's written down. They just loved that kind of stuff. And then Richard Rowland says this. He said, but before that, the Middle Ages, people valued things that were not written down, right? Because once they're written down, you begin to have control over them. And if they're not written down, the thought was that they come from above, or they come from the community. And they're even more valuable because these are the memories that everybody kept together, or these are the things that came directly from God. And it just began to resonate with me, thinking, how many times do I want to just know and think, and now I've got it. I got it figured out in here, when really I just need to open my hands and let God speak to me through the scriptures, through a wise counsel of other Christians, but just to open things up and to let God begin to work. Again, still got work to do, still have things I have to get done, I have to accomplish. But how often do I not let God speak before I act? Not grasping, not holding, not trying to prove something. Not remembering that the hands of Jesus are at rest right now. I don't act like Jesus has already completed everything. I act like I got to fix something. I got to do something. Not thinking, oh, this thing I'm going to fix, this thing I'm going to do, this thing I'm going to work on is something that Jesus has gifted to me to do, and that no matter what happens or however it turns out, his work is already completed. That if you win or if you lose, if you accomplish something or you fail, if you're faithful to the completed and finished work of Jesus, your work is already done and complete. You have only to be faithful. Remember in the garden? That's Friday night this week. Jesus is in the garden with the disciples. And what does he tell the disciples to do? He doesn't say, get your swords out, we're going to battle. He says, watch and pray. That's all you got to do. You watch and you pray. That's all I want from you. And the disciples fall asleep. But all Jesus asks of you, because it's already completed, it's finished, he asks, just watch and to pray. Again, maybe I say this over and over because I'm preaching to myself, but again, doesn't mean you just sit around and do nothing. What it means is that what you do does not have to accomplish anything. It just has to be watching and praying and being faithful to Jesus. His work is already done. By the sweat of your brow, no longer. By your own toil, no longer. By the accomplishment and finished work of Jesus, yes, that is how we act. Because of the hands of Jesus are already at rest. And if his hands are already at rest, your hands do not have to keep working. The hands that made everything has now finished everything for you. Because his hands are at rest, you do not need to keep striving. Amen. All right, we're going to sing All Glory, Laud, and Honor.